Good day, everyone, and welcome to this month's Northern Virginia Health Policy Forum. I'm Carl Mallory. I serve as the Vice President of Healthcare Services at Applied Policy. And as many of you may already know, Applied Policy is a health policy and reimbursement consulting firm based in Alexandria, Virginia. And we host monthly forums to discuss a wide variety of issues shaping the American healthcare landscape. So it's not an overstatement to say that artificial intelligence, or AI, as it is most often known, is really revolutionizing American healthcare. Hospitals and health systems alike are already reaping the benefits of AI in many, many ways, such as having technology act as a second pair of eyes for radiologists and or mitigating the risks of human error. However, I have to say there are questions that remain regarding how to regulate AI while ensuring that it is deployed in a safe and unbiased manner. So at Houston Methodist, there's a core group of healthcare and technology professionals. They are self-described as digital innovation obsessed people. And I really like that title. I think it really describes who they are. They lead the Hospital Center for Innovation. And this team works to drive new pilots and programs across the healthcare spectrum. And we have an expert who leads this team with us today to share her frontline view of AI in healthcare and discuss existing innovations shaping healthcare systems. So let me introduce Dr. Roberta Schwartz. She serves as the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer at Houston Methodist Healthcare System. And I must also say that not too long ago, I had the wonderful honor of meeting Dr. Schwartz and some of her team members. We toured the facility, and Dr. Schwartz, I must say, I was just so genuinely impressed with the people, the facility, and your all's service to the patients that you serve. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Schwartz, and maybe we should start off with just a overview of Houston Methodist and your role there.
Thank you so much for having me. It is quite honestly an honor and a privilege anytime we get to talk about what's happening in the field and really where we think people should be concentrating, but also brag about what we're doing here at Houston Methodist. So we're a 7-hospital system. We also have an LTAC, soon to be an 8-hospital system in Houston, Texas. The one advantage that we have here when we speak about Houston is it's a very big city. So we serve a neighborhood of 7 million people. Oftentimes people think it's small because it's just one city, but we serve a population that's larger than about 30 states. So when you look at that, it's actually a large market area that we serve and a large test bed that we have for these individuals. We're about an $8 billion system at this point. So we span over a large swath of different markets. Some of them are very small. Some of our academic medical center, which I serve as the Executive Vice President over, in addition to my duties as the Chief Innovation Officer. Here we serve the academic system serves all 7 million people. But again, large markets, small markets, rural markets, more rural or urban, I would say to you, suburban markets, but they dot the city of Houston. We also have a very large physician practice, so we get to do a lot of trials within our physician community.
Wide variety there, Dr. Schwartz, serving a lot of people in a lot of communities. So for those in our audience who may not be as familiar with AI, could you explain what artificial intelligence is in the context of a healthcare system?
For people who have never heard me talk before, it's my most hated term. I hate the term artificial intelligence. I'm speaking about it today, and it's But the only reason I say that is it's a very generic term, and everyone reads into that what they want to. Some people read into that term the matrix, and some people read into that their iPhone. And the answer is it's everything and then some, right? It's that generic term that applies to any computer function sequence or capability that takes the place of a human having to do that function. So it artificial intelligence spans anywhere from a computer sequence that goes out and looks up your insurance and populates that in an Epic field, right? That's kind of one use. It can also be a automated checkout that you go to, that you dump your food on the table and basically walk out of the room. It can be the bots that basically for the physicians write either a note or an answer to your query. You think you're talking to a human being, but you're actually talking to a bot, right? To a predictive analytic and an algorithm that makes a judgment, like summarizes a huge amount of data, puts it in, and makes a prediction or a judgment on the information that you have, and then allows for a human to use that judgment, right? They have to layer their judgment on the computer's judgment to make a decision about a care they're going to do, or a payment plan they're going to offer, or other kinds of things that you may predict off of that computer analytic. Those are the ones that people are the most worried about, these biases coming into place. So AI spans that huge continuum. And oftentimes when people say to me, okay, let's talk about AI, I'm like, okay, which aspect of it? Because like, I need to know what your mindset is. It's almost like when I used to go in my at the very late stage of my uncle's, my great uncle, who's basically my dad, his dying process. I would walk in the room and I would at first say, okay, who am I? Am I myself? Am I my mother? Am I, your sister? Like, who am I? So I know which part to play. That's how I often feel about artificial intelligence.
Very good. That makes that very understandable. Thank you for that. Well, I'm sure that our audience members would like to hear more about the Center of Innovation, your team that supports the center, and just in general, the group's approach.
Yeah, so we began the Center for Innovation in a very unique way, which is that I made a speech, and that speech was on how this whole world, our world, was going to change, and we either led the change, or the change was going to happen to us because of the number of outside companies that were coming in having these discussions. So after I made this speech, everyone came up and said, "I want to be a part of your effort," and I went, what effort? And so it was like, okay, well, let's form one. And we started a journal club that we called DIOP, Digital Innovation Obsessed People. That morphed as my boss basically watched some of the work we were talking about and doing with some extra budget dollars. It was kind of half IT people, half operations people. And we said, we'd like to continue doing this. He said, great. Should we hire people to do it? We said, no, we all want to do it. We'll keep our day jobs and we want to do this on the side. And that's how the Center for Innovation was officially born. So we only have 5 really dedicated employees in the center, a number of who are project managers, a VP of strategy, our director, who's our fearless Murad, our fearless leader there, and just the brilliant Sarah Pletcher, who's head of our strategy and innovation shop, as well as this team of incredible project managers. And they're the only dedicated people. The rest of us have a day job and an innovation job, and we love both of them. So I literally will go back and forth. Like Tuesday, Thursday are heavily innovation days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are heavily hospital days, but they often get blended. And the ability, again, we are uniquely positioned because not only do I listen to a lecture about how we're going to impact our nurses, but I have nurses that report to me, right? 2,000 of them. So if I basically say, try this, like try your vegetables, it can taste good. And they say to me, oh my God, that vegetable actually tastes better than I thought. Or I'm going to spit it out because that's just terrible. Like the learning bed of them, that like I have to make them happy both from my trying to keep them to run my hospital. We don't have those fights between operations and innovation in the same way as other people have when innovation's off to the side because we're completely integrated. And
It's been my
that's
experience.
beautiful.
That's very unique, very unique. What a great culture. If you wouldn't mind, maybe tell us a little bit about the center's innovation process. Do you go in and define goals and objectives and strategies and timelines, or is there a different approach for trying to go from point A to point B to point C?
So there are two things that are really unique, right? One is that, again, you heard like we're operators. We're operators. And so that's the mindset that we take things from. The second one you notice about that is we're not builders. We never pretended that we could build things. In fact, I would say to you, almost everything we tried to build, we kind of failed at, even if we tried, because we're not builders. One or two things we built for the meanwhile. But what we found is that if we partnered with companies, innovative companies that are doing incredible things, and worked with them to help them build their products, we benefited from that. And so we're in the business of healthcare. They're in the business of innovating technologies for us, and that partnership is really unique. So we work with generally stage B companies that have, we always say scaling things in this type of environment, as I told you, we're big. So scaling things in a really big environment is very hard. People will come in and say, oh, I just want that data. Oh, I just want to integrate. Well, integrating into this size system is hard. So we always say to people, try it out in a much smaller environment. Bring it to us when you're ready to blow it up and scale it. And even the learnings to go from small to big, we work with these companies. They either succeed or fail. We say to them, you get about a year to try it out. If you cannot make this work in this environment, it's okay. We part ways. We're friends. But we'll either like the concept and look for somebody else who can do it, or we'll say that concept, it's just not ready. It's just not the right time. So we've been so blessed with so many incredible partners that we've had the opportunity to work with. We rarely invest. We're not an investing shop. We're a building shop. We're a scaling shop. We are a shop that is all about, can this improve the lives of our staff? Can it improve the lives of our patient? Can it improve quality of care? If it can do those things, we want more of it.
Well, I was just getting ready, and that leads me into this next question. And you mentioned your partners and the time frame that they work within. But really, when it kind of, is there a way, and I know this is hard, to boil this down to how do we define a failure versus a success? And I know you mentioned patients and coworkers and the things that hospitals are supposed to be providing. Is there something beyond that, Dr. Schwartz?
So let's just, the best way to do this is give examples, right?
Okay.
And I'll give an example of a success and I'll give an example of a failure. And again, sometimes the products are not at the right time, it's not the right solution, or it's not the right solution for us, meaning sometimes it's the baseline, the way our baseline systems work. If you think about it, your baseline systems are going to be your people systems, right? Your type of PeopleSoft, Workday, whatever it is that has all of your people information inside. Then you're going to also have like generally a timekeeping type of system, that type of baseline system. You're also going to have your electronic medical record. If you think of those, like fundamentally have the majority, it has like 80% of the information aside from like imaging off to the side or lab off to the side, right? That's going to house a lot of information. Sometimes the way that's built allows or doesn't allow innovators to build on top of them. And so again, sometimes it's the way we build things make people successful or not. Sometimes it's their products that make it successful or not. So I'll take I'll take an example of where we failed. We actually were looking at how to better provide our emergency room doctors information about, you come into the emergency room and they're running like crazy, right? They have 12 patients that they're following. You are the patient. We're waiting for your labs to come back, your radiology scans to come back. We're waiting for 2 consults before the emergency room doctor renders an opinion about what's going on with you. If it's not obvious, right? If it's obvious, it's very clear. But if it's not so obvious, there's lots of information we have to get back from scans. There were a series of products, actually a few, that we're supposed to aggregate that information and alert the doctor. Hey, flash, flash, all the information's back. Here we go. Right? It's kind of that AI, right? It sits on top of the data, but it gives the nudge to the doctors that that information is back. Here it is summarized, and we're ready to make a decision. When we tried with two different products, the way our base systems are set up, it actually never released the orders until you actually got to the machine. So until you got over to like a CT scan, it wouldn't release those orders. That's how our base system is set up. So this system, these AI products, were alerting the doctors and saying, here you go, your information's ready. Like, it's fantastic. Diagnose the patient and get them on their way. And the doctors were like, but the information's not there. Like, they haven't even gone for 3 tests. And they were ready to rip out their hair because this system was digging them all day long saying it was ready, even though the information wasn't in the system. They tried and tried and tried to fix that. And after a period of time, we're like, we're done. Our doctors are ready to kill us for a system that's supposed to help them. You've tried to fix it. We've tried to fix it. It's just not working. So that's an example, right? Now, interestingly, one of the companies kind of stopped doing the efforts that they're doing, and one of them is doing them with some different systems. So it's interesting that what you find is, like, again, when they try to scale it at this step, and again, we don't give out those names. We're not trying to, we always say maybe right product, wrong time, maybe wrong technology, maybe wrong partnership with our tech. That would be compared to telenursing, where we went out to lunch one day and we're trying to figure out how to help our nurses. And we said, look, we're going to put some people in the background on camera, and they're going to do your paperwork. And the nurses stood there, and I'm not lying. It's a little hard for me to demonstrate unless I go up on tippy toes, but they just sat there, crossed their arms, really look, nasty. And they said, you know what you could do if you wanted to help us? You could get us some real nurses. How about some real nurses? That would be great. That's how you could help us. You could put real nurses on the floor. And we're like, you know what? Let's try it. Let's just try it. And we did it with the units that were running the shortest on nurses because we had to hire them. And it was 10 days between that, like, arm nastiness to this is the best thing that you have ever done for us, ever. Right? Good innovations in your life go from creepy to can't live without them in a very short period of time. And that's a successful innovation. And that's really how we work and what we work. And again, every one of those have that level of artificial intelligence. But again, if it's not useful, it dies out very quickly.
Sounds like that was largely due to your all's willingness to collaborate with your team and build consensus and build programs around those issues. So that's wonderful to hear. Moving on to a new subject, an article from the American Hospital Association last year outlined the ways that Houston Methodist's Innovation Network increased patient satisfaction, improved patient engagement, and reduced readmission. So maybe we should spend a few minutes just talking about, some of those innovations. So I'll just pose a question to get us started. If you wouldn't mind, kind of give us an overview of the center's successfully deployed innovations and maybe some of the impacts that you've seen across the hospital.
Yeah, so let's talk about what we've learned about patients, right? You need to learn equally as much about patients as the innovations.
Yes.
So the innovations came in and we learned. It was kind of these like go back and forth. So what we learned, if you think about a number of years ago, and again, these were brilliant, like aha moments a number of years ago that now, like, you can't even imagine that this is not the way your doctor's office works. But you used to get a reminder from a doctor's office, and that was about the only time that a doctor's office or a hospital texted you, was sometimes a reminder about an appointment, right? So we could send you have an appointment, and we were very careful because of that HIPAA information to basically only say you have an appointment. Sometimes we didn't even say who the appointment was with, and at 3 o'clock, like, it was very cryptic, right? and then every other piece of information, we forced you as a patient to go into somebody else's app. And what we found is that lots of people would sign up for a MyChart account if you're using Epic. I can't remember the exact name of the Cerner one, but I'm agnostic, right? People would force you to go into their app to get the information about your healthcare, the details on the visit, anything else you had to go. Between 20 and 30% of people engaged in that. So even if you made those people wildly happy, you were only engaging with a very small percent of your population. Somewhere along the way, we worked with our legal teams and a lot of people to be able to say, look, people want things in their native environment, and native environment for many people is text. Text or email, right? It's not take me to another app. When we then started working in a HIPAA compliant way to be able to send information to your text about what expectations you should have for this visit, what forms you could get filled out, and then after your visit, what you needed to do. So giving a very good example of this, it would say the night before surgery, please take your temperature and tell us, and again, it goes to your text, tell us yes or no, and all you had to do was type yes or no. It's within normal range and not normal range, and it gave you that normal range. If you said, no, I'm temperature 103, we then got a text back to us saying, oh, goodness gracious, that surgery is going to be canceled. We didn't have to wait for you to come in the morning because we knew that surgery was going to be canceled. We could say to you, sleep late, eat your food. We're not going to be having surgery tomorrow because we're not doing surgery when your temperature is 101. It alerted the doctor, it alerted the nurse, it alerted the scheduler. Right after you left the hospital, this is always my favorite example. On day 6, we texted you about whether or not you could drive again. And people were like, oh, like, how did they know? How did they know we were going to ask that question? It was because we asked our surgery schedulers, like, or our surgical assistants, like in the offices, what do most people call you about? And they said, oh, on day 7, they call us about driving. So we backed that up one day and sent out the information on driving. So people thought we were like, we had ESP on what they were thinking. And it was like, all we did was save your phone call. So you didn't get frustrated. You didn't get frustrated because you didn't get a call back or they didn't answer the phone. You got the answer right away to the question that most people are wondering about. And that's how we started to see those patient satisfaction increases. We kept people off the phone, we kept people, and we gave them the information when they wanted it.
And that's so patient-centric. I'm sure your patients really, really appreciate that level and that line of communication so they can be appropriately prepared and know what to expect. No surprises.
But the forms are filled out in advance now. That all goes to your text. You don't have to log into a special section to do that. Here it is. It's an easy form. Fill out, and now you don't have to stop at the desk. I don't need to tell you to be here 15 minutes early. All of those things are what we learned. We learned sometimes we tried things out on patients, much like kind of a Facebook would. Hey, when we sent this out to you, did you engage with us? And sometimes doctors are like, not only am I not engaging, I'm just downright angry.
So we all know that there's a sort of a balance that between evidence-based practice and clinical validation, and I'm sure there have been some challenges along the way, and you've sort of alluded to that. Any further comments on that question, Dr. Schwartz?
Change is hard. Change is really hard. We always say as human beings, like, I'm a very adaptable person and I love change. And the answer is we don't love change. So I'll talk about a particular solution and kind of give you that level of challenges that there are. And it's still, we're still in that change process. So this is very raw. So I will point out. So let me first, if it's okay with you, I'm going to share a screen so you kind of understand what I'm talking about. So we deployed a solution that is called Apella. And there are actually three solutions, and I always tell people that don't only look at the one that we've chosen. We chose Apella. There's OR Black Box. There's Artisight. That really look in the operating rooms, and their function and focus is on OR, both safety and efficiency. Apella heavily on OR efficiency. And so one of the things that we learned is that if we put cameras around the room, then we can actually look at when things are actually happening in the room via video. What we found, if you look to the left, is that there's a lot of error that humans have. And if you had the video help you understand exactly where you were in this case, like where you were in your day, your people could basically, this computer, this artificial intelligence could tell you how many rooms we're going to be, if you look, we're going to be open at 3, how many we're going to be open at 5, how many were we going to need at 7, exactly how many people did we have. So this is like the doctor, and then we basically have like what they're doing and where we are. And this moves across the screen almost like, like you would know about your airplane. Oh, I'm 5 minutes late. I'm 7 minutes late. You would know about all those kind of things. Well, I can tell you that the beginning was fantastic. Surgeons were super excited, and we started to see some ability to increase block time, ability to move that day. Our anesthesia loved it. They knew exactly how many personnel. Our nurses loved it, because it was predictive. And then everyone woke up to the fact that this was video, right? We were taking video. And video translated to the artificial intelligence, but somewhere there was a video. And then everyone started to get very nervous, particularly as we started looking at these for safety. How many people were walking in and out of rooms? How many timeouts were done appropriately? Was everyone quiet in the timeout? You started to look at all of the different uses you could use, and it was nerve-wracking. It's interesting that I've talked to another hospital, Tampa General, who has this in, and they haven't had that level of concern. Now, do you have to make sure it's absolutely locked down and you maintain privacy and, you've protected the people in the room and you've protected, the patients and all of it, 100%. But when you look at that video and audio translated to artificial intelligence, I can tell you that change process has been very nerve-wracking. What's going to happen if there's a lawsuit? Where does this video live? Who's going to be able to access it? Who can look at it? Because again, we're interested in the artificial intelligence that comes off of it. We're not interested in as much about the what the actual video says, unless there's some reason to access it. When do you delete it? Who gets, if you needed to access it, who gets to look at it? Does everyone in the room? Are you going to make HR decisions based on it? It leads to a huge amount of questions, and that change management process is super hard. And not for the faint of heart. So the hardest part, people will tell you, is they're rich with ideas. We are rich with ideas in both the innovation community and in the provider community. But there's a difference in moving those ideas comes with an extraordinary amount of change management. And that is super hard.
So many people are really very optimistic about the future of innovation in healthcare. And of course, we have to recognize that there are others who, for now, remain skeptical. What would you say to the people who are worried about their jobs or the safety of their patients?
Okay, so of course, I can't help. I always find that people identify the most when I use real world examples. So I'm going to use another one. So this is, and again, picture's worth 1,000 words, I always say to people. This is a bio button. We have now placed a bio button on every one of our acute care patients. So we have a virtual ICU. Those patients are hooked up to a lot of machines, but we actually put on these bio buttons on our patients. This is from a company called BioIntelliSense. There are other companies, Masimo, a couple other companies that do this type of work. If you think about the fact that as a nurse or as a PCA, a nursing assistant, you were taking vital signs every 4 hours. So I took vital signs every 4, and that's the above picture, and I trended them. So you can see how many data points I got during that time. Now, with my bio button that's attached to every patient, I get these, I get a reading every hour, which is a summary of like 160 data points in the previous hour. So now my trending becomes much more real time, and these are the kinds of things that I'm trending. We then marry that with our Epic, some of our Epic data, and we have now a monitoring center. So you don't just have now one set of eyes on you, right? The people at the bedside, but I have a separate set of eyes. Like I have an entirely second set of eyes. Because of this, now I've been able to move my bedside that they only do 3 checks, validations a day. So I gave back to the nursing assistants 4 hours a day that they can now help bathe, help walk, help do lots of work with my patients that they didn't have that time before, right? So I've given you more time at the bedside. And in addition to that, I have a second set of eyes. I can tell you the great catches. Like, are there huge amounts of catches? No, it's a small number. But when they are, we've caught internal bleeds that probably wouldn't have been caught for hours, hyperglycemic events, AFib. We've caught all kinds of things now with the bio button at a much earlier point. And we're just beginning to do those papers to measure how much we are now going to help given a immediate feedback linked to our patients, which is, I mean, again, phenomenal. Did people lose their jobs? No, people did not lose their jobs. Did we attrit and change some jobs, like move over from telemetry over to monitoring? Yes, we did. Like it changed. But I can tell you, I do think if you give us another year, those patients will be, they already are, and will be phenomenally better off because we've made this switch. Scary, but I mean, but you look back, we will look back in a few years and go, I can't even imagine how we did without that.
You mentioned earlier that a lot of people are resistant to change. And then once they get comfortable with it, then they maybe sort of change their point of view. Okay, next question. It's probably inevitable that AI technologies will from time to time conflict with patient preferences. So maybe a few comments about that might be helpful right now.
As we basically expand telemedicine in the patient care situation, oftentimes there are going to be people who say, I'd like the doctor at the bedside. I'd rather not have the nurse on the screen. I'd rather this person come to talk to me. I'd rather not have the bot answer the phone and direct me. I miss the days that a human being answered every one of my phone calls. And the answer is yes. I get it. I actually had an order. Someone kept saying to me, I had flowers delivered to you. And I was like, I didn't want to make them feel bad. And I was like, yeah, those flowers. And, I just kind of let it go and tried to call. Actually, it was an FTD who, or it may have been the other way around. I sent and they didn't get, I can't remember. But I tried to phone call whichever website it was. There was no ability. I mean, these websites, it's actually hard to find somebody who to call, who to talk to. I got in this loop of an AI bot that I wanted to kill myself. Well, I'm sure people are that way with me. I don't think that we're far from perfect. I know we are far from perfect. And the answer is these things are going to be in conflict. There are some things that you did them in the past and those days are gone. But at the same time, the question is, are we doing better for our patients? Are we improving the quality on the general whole? as opposed to on the one by one. People may have different preferences that we meet or don't meet. I can tell you the younger generation, half the times they just want a web and secure text talk to a doctor. They don't even want to ever see them. And in fact, they don't even want to see them on the screen. Like, why would you look at your bank teller through an ATM? Just give me my money. You know, as opposed to, I would tell you sometimes the daughter of a very complicated, 90-year-old who is like, I need to be able to talk about things, and I need to be able to vent, and I need a support group, and I need psychological counseling for what I'm dealing with mom, and, sometimes they'll get the same doctor on the screen, and that may or may not work for them. So I think being able to provide the plethora of different opportunities for people to interact with healthcare is the challenge that we have. And again, where you say it doesn't always work for everybody.
So we're increasingly hearing concerns about AI systems displaying what I'll define as biases. What measures can hospital systems take to try to address biases, ensure fairness in AI algorithms, and the decision-making process?
It's interesting. One of the things that we assume is that humans were unbiased, right? I often look at every time a Google car gets in an accident and the world has just come to an end, as if like in the last 5 minutes, there weren't 20 fatal car accidents that just happened with humans driving, right? So first of all, we've got to get off the idea that humans in their judgment were perfectly unbiased. And we've proven time and time again that they are, and that the computers are more or less biased. Computers are going to be based on the information that you give them to train on, the way they train, and the comprehensiveness of the information that they're asked to provide back. So when we look at this, we have to give these computers enough information and then do a review of the model to make sure that the model is not skewed in one way or another. There are more collaboratives that are coming out to say, hey, let us test your model, and let us test it to see if it's biased in one direction or another. I think these things will come better over time. But if you train a model on whether somebody, what is somebody's sex, and you only train it on a model that says male and female, and you don't put in male, female, non-binary, you're never going to get a non-binary answer, right? So the key question becomes, again, how you train it, the depth, and understanding that the model will get better over time. Just as humans, if you point out to them that they're making biased decisions, right, will get better over time as you train them.
So maybe we can move on to a short discussion about the future of AI. And how do you see government regulations? I know that's a gray area, and the industry evolving.
I think, first of all, not only is AI here, it's here to stay, it's here to grow, and it will get better. So really on the regulation front, we all balance, we're going to balance the desire to get these things out there and be useful, as well as protect us and our ability to make decisions. I mean, it's funny that huge amounts of the population want to make sure that their health information is protected, when 66% of people actually leave a doctor's appointment or a hospital and post the information on Facebook or Google, like whatever site, Instagram, whatever it is. It's amazing how many people like just self-post their information about their healthcare. And they're like, how did you know? You must have leaked the information. No, you posted it. It's not a problem. So, right, it's extraordinary amounts of people, right? So we're doing protection. We want to make sure that these things are wide enough trained and they're used responsibly, right? We're using them for good and not evil. I think that's where we need for these balance of these protections to be. But what you don't want to do is not let them grow and let them flourish and let them continue to be better. Because healthcare in this country is, we all admit, access is not as universal as we need it to be. The healthcare system is not as good as it needs to be. We are too expensive, straight up, straight across the board. So if I can basically create apps or communications that allow you to use 3 less drugs for pain because I'm encouraging virtual reality to be used instead of pain medication, thumbs up. Like that's an amazing, that's better for you and your health, and it's cheaper, and it's a different way of doing it to kind of make sure that you, for the rest of your life, have that moment where you aren't necessarily having to have pain meds for the pain that you're experiencing, right? Before surgery, after surgery. Maybe it has limited use. Maybe it lowers anxiety. We want to encourage those things, right? We don't want to overregulate them. We also don't want them to run wild. So I think that I love what the White House is doing about encouraging responsibilities of both organizations and companies on the development that they're doing and the utilization. But we can't stop it. We can't halt it. We can't lock down that telemedicine or those videos to a point where we don't find the safety and increase the safety because of what they're doing.
I'm curious, are there emerging trends and innovations that you might define as the most exciting or promising to you?
I do believe these biosensors and the cost per unit is getting to a point where I think that is insanely exciting that we could get these in mass scales across all of our populations that need them. It used to be incredibly cumbersome. I think they're coming down, and the capabilities that they're doing are exciting. The ability to put cameras in each one of our rooms, both in inpatients, possibly in clinics in the future, to both take care of paperwork, to watch people when we need sitters on them, to help out people at home, right? I need to work. Mom's a little confused. Can I get her hooked into a TV with somebody who can watch her? Yes, right? The ability to expand healthcare and move it closer to the home, but be tethered to the healthcare system at a price point at which we can afford, that's coming. And I think it's coming because we're starting to look at how we do these things at scale. We had a number of people in here from our governor's office and some of our lead state senators and congressmen, and they were saying, look, if we had known that we could hook to you with these type of cameras, there are some of the rural centers we would not have had to close, right? That ability to hub and spoke our healthcare system in a very different way. I think the difference in the price points and the access and the technology that you need now is so much less expensive than when we tried to put it in years ago. So, but now we need to change to use it, and we need to figure out how to compensate the hubs in a way to support the spokes.
We've got a few minutes remaining, and we've had a couple of questions come in from our audience. So if you don't mind, I might just read a couple of these and, get your perspective on them. So the first one is, do you see the opportunity for AI to play a role in claims processing and perhaps help reduce denials and appeals?
Oh, 100%. Revenue cycle is one of those areas that is revenue cycle and finance that has been a focus for robotic process automation. It's been a focus for not only predictability in people's ability to pay, how they like to pay, but the The answer is like how many humans need to be in those loops to close a claim, both both in the upfront process, right? Because the upfront process is pretty critical. Like, did we get the insurance right? Do we have your address right? Do we have your name right? Do we have 6 medical record numbers for one person, right? That the ability to get it right on the front end is the first combating on denials management. The second one is the ability to have to get verified, right, that you are eligible to have this service and that you do or do not need authorization. And I am a trusted partner because I know that you actually, I have layers of AI in there to tell whether or not you truly need this. And I've jumped through all those hoops, so you trust me that I'm only going to do it because this person absolutely needs it, right? All of those things go to that back end. And interestingly, insurance companies in many cases are willing to even pay for some of these things to be put in at the providers because their costs go down administratively. So revenue cycle is one of those areas where if people have not bridged and looked into all of the opportunities that there are, it's phenomenal. CDI coding, I could give you example after example that we're trialing, but I love the system that we're looking at.
We've got time, it looks like, for one final question, Dr. Schwartz. And so if there is really one thing that you would like our audience to remember from our conversation today, what would it be?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the innovations. Embrace the innovations. They are far from perfect. When they go in, sometimes they're messy. But you can't be afraid of what is to come because I think it's somewhat inevitable. The second one is the change process that's going to take to go from where we are to that future world. First of all, it never stops. Change never ends. But the second one is it's hard work. And it's hard work and it's uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean that we, your members, the people you work with, don't have to do that hard work. You have to. It's avoiding it will only slow down what needs to happen. And I think it's I do believe the future is very bright. I guess I wouldn't be in this job if I didn't believe that. But I think that the work to go from here to there requires a lot of people at the table giving as opposed to taking.
So this brings us to the end of this month's Northern Virginia Health Policy Forum. And so, Dr. Schwartz, we want to just genuinely thank you for joining us and for your thoughtful insights on the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare. I also want to thank the members of our audience for joining us today, and our applied policy team, of course, for putting the forum together. So before I close, in the chat, you'll find links to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, and I would encourage everyone to do that, and view the Virginia Health Policy Forum website. And we'll host a panel of reporters in late April to discuss top issues affecting health policy. So really genuinely thank you all for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.